YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. Today I got 10 NFL trades that we would love to see happen before the 2022 season begins. Maybe not everybody, but I think most people would enjoy seeing these big-time trades go down. I've used quite a few of legit trade candidates and threw some other guys in there as well. We got scenarios with what picks are involved, what other players are involved, so I'm really excited about this one here. And we got plenty of videos like this on the channel, plenty more to come, full NFL coverage here, so join us, like, subscribe, turn notifications on, follow us on Twitter. A lot going on there, news, rumors, more. NBA free agency is kind of getting hyped up right now. I'm kind of excited as a fan. I'm kind of getting excited about it, so maybe we can talk about those things on Twitter as well. But always interacting with you guys there. Here's our Twitter. I just posted this right before going to record about this video, and then I wanted you guys to comment what the trade that you would like to see happen. Doesn't have to be super realistic, but keep it somewhat realistic. But already seeing comments come in. Love to see it. First one, Deebo. Sent him to the Colts. Multiple reasons here. We have Deebo for 2 picks, first and a second round. We'll talk about the value I decided on there in a second. But, yeah, Deebo, well, first off, Ballard isn't really afraid to go there. He really isn't afraid to make that trade. So the Colts made sense for that reason. I think he fits the Colts as well. They need another receiver. They have Pittman. You know, they drafted Alec Pierce. Maybe Paris Campbell can step up. I thought about throwing Paris Campbell in here, sending him back to the 49ers. Maybe they'd be interested in him. Haven't seen a whole lot of him so far, but which has been unfortunate because we know he could have some talent in there. But, yeah, I like the fit with the Colts there, and Deebo doesn't want to be the running back. Doesn't really have to worry about that with the Colts, even though he kind of fits that offense. Doesn't have to worry about that with the Colts because they have maybe the best running back in football in Jonathan Taylor there. So I think he'd fit right in. Matt Ryan's there. That's fantastic. And, again, the Colts wouldn't be afraid to make the trade. Now, coming up with the value is kind of the tough part there because – yeah, the Jets offered the 10th overall pick plus a swap of picks. The 49ers didn't want it, so it would have to be a little bit more than that. So, well, this wouldn't really be the 10th overall pick, but you throw a second-round pick in there, which is tremendous amount more value than the swap or whatever the Jets had in there. So would the 49ers accept? Would a team give this up? The Colts won't be able to trade their third because there's something on that with the Carson Wentz. They have an extra second, so that's why they're able to trade the second there. So, yeah, so it was pretty interesting. But will a team want to give this up for Deebo Samuel with him kind of changing his role, like wanting to change his role? Like, I don't want to run the game. Will he be kind of the same guy? I think he's a good enough receiver where he is, where he is good enough worth that value. So, yeah, I thought about a first, and again, they can't trade their third, but first and a fourth, it's too cheap in my opinion. So I came up with a first and a second. That's kind of giving up a lot, but a very, very talented, unique, young receiver here for the Colts. 49ers get some picks. I guess the downside of that is the 49ers want to win right now. Picks, is that going to do them good? It could. A lot of rookies young players making that impact, big-time impact early on in their careers, right away as well. Talk about another big-time receiver that's been a trade candidate, DK Metcalf. I sent him to the Ravens. Pretty similar to the Deebo trade. I tacked on a 5th-round pick. Why? Because, yeah, Deebo trying to switch his role a little bit, so does that drop his value compared to a DK Metcalf who is also younger than Deebo Samuel? So, and the Seahawks do want to extend. I know the 49ers want to extend Deebo. Does Deebo want to take that extension, though, there? The Seahawks and DK, it sounds like they want to reach a deal, but they're just not getting there, so he could be dealt. But I like the Ravens. If I had to pick a spot where I would like to see him go, I think a lot of people are on the same page. The Ravens, because they don't have that big-time receiver, and I know they're kind of a run-first team, but DK would still get his share of targets. That big-body contested catch receiver, which sometimes Lamar gets a little wild on his throws, and having that big-body contested catch receiver, one of the best in football, could be the best. Having that is a very good option for sure. Another Mark Andrews, the tight end, is kind of in the same category, and then DK Metcalf, that receiver. So would love to see that for Lamar Jackson there. And the Seahawks, they want DK Metcalf to be, and that's the thing. People saw the Seahawks were going in rebuild mode, so everyone's like, DK is going to get traded because of that. And I say that's wrong. I think he could get traded, but I don't think it's because they're going in rebuild. Somewhat of a rebuild stage, because I think he could be part of that. I think if he would get traded, it's not because of that. I think people would think wrong. I think it would be because they just couldn't reach a deal, and they like picks if they can get a load of picks. So 1st, 2nd, and 5th round pick maybe one of those picks is a 2024 pick perhaps, but then the Ravens get their receiver. I don't think they would be afraid to trade some picks there. Well, I guess I'd say that. Maybe I could take that back with the Ravens because I don't think they'd be afraid to trade picks for a big-time player. But then receiver, they've been a little hesitant to do that to value the receiver very highly. So maybe they wouldn't. Maybe the Ravens just wouldn't do it. They need to start valuing the receiver a little bit more, at least in my opinion. I think everyone's opinion there. But would love to see DK on the Ravens. Another receiver, sticking on the receiver train here. Not as big time of a guy as some of these other guys, but Darius Slayton. The Giants actually have a list of receivers, and there was some rumors about Tony being dealt that kind of just seemed to be blown up a little bit too much, and they'll hang on to him. He's got a lot of upside. Shepard, they reworked his contract. They want Kenny Golladay to work out. Don't think anyone would trade for him with that contract. He's very talented too, but I don't think anyone would trade for him with that contract. So that kind of leaves, and they draft Wan'Dale Robinson as well, but that kind of leaves Darius Slayton, who was kind of linked to trade rumors during the trade deadline, actually. And the Giants, they kind of want to, they're looking, they're not afraid to clear even if it's a little bit of space here and there, and then move on from James Bradbury. So they could trade Slayton. I think it's a guy that hasn't been talked about in terms of trade rumors, trade candidates that I think it's realistic that he could be. And the Bears are in need of a receiver, another number one perhaps that Slayton could be. We've seen some flashes to pair with Mooney out there in Chicago because they definitely need more help for Justin Fields. And he's young. They could re-sign him, kind of give him that trial this year, re-sign him. He could be part of that rebuild. Makes sense. So 2023 fourth-round pick, maybe his value was a little bit richer in the recent past, really, but maybe it's starting to drop a little bit with a fifth rounder. Yeah, fifth round would be too cheap. I don't think it'd be worth it for the Giants. So fourth round pick is where I was at there. The Bears definitely can use him. I think he can be productive with Justin Fields there. He can be their second best option. Wouldn't be surprising if he was on the Bears, if he played up to Mooney or maybe even played a little bit better. That wouldn't surprise me. Not saying that would happen, but so I thought the Bears made a lot of sense there. Did the Bears be in on DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel? It's possible. I don't think they want to trade any first round pick though. So I think it would have to be a little cheaper for them to do it there. Speaking of the Bears, Robert Quinn has actually been in kind of trade rumors news because he's kind of sitting out right now. Could be dealt. Are the Bears looking for somebody to, are they kind of letting them know we're looking for the trade? Is that why he's sitting out? Or does he want more money? His contract was pretty big, but he's already got the signing bonus already. So, he's not making a whole lot compared to his sack numbers last year per year, I suppose. But he's a risky one to give more money to if that's the situation here, because something I learned about Robert Quinn is when projecting the upcoming season, don't base things off the previous season, because you'd have a terrible year and the next year, and you expect him to kind of do that again. He has a fantastic year. It's a fantastic year. The next year kind of has a down year. So that's why it's a little tough on if you want to give him more money or if you're going to trade for Robert Quinn. But a team that wants to compete right now, I don't know if they really showed it a whole lot this offseason so far, letting guys walk, not being super active, that would be the Cardinals, and that also need pass rush help very, very badly. If they want to contend right now, they need to be better in the edge rush department 100%. Losing Chandler Jones was tough. And they got a couple guys that could play, but they're kind of hit or miss guys, inconsistent. What are we going to get from them? They need another guy in there. So Robert Quinn would make some sense. So second round pick is what I sent to the Bears here. First would definitely be too rich. I know people looking at only the stats from last year maybe think he could be worth the first. I don't think too many people are expecting a first here. But it is a little risky even giving up a second, because does he want more money? He's still expensive as it is. Which Robert Quinn are we going to get? It's like every other year with him. And again, it's going to be some cap hits there. It's gonna hit the Cardinals a little bit. And I threw in Andy Isabella. Now, I just had the Bears trading for a receiver in the previous one. You probably can't do both of these. These are just separate ideas. I don't think they would trade for two receivers. But Isabella, since the last trade deadline, has kind of been linked to trade rumors, and he'd probably go pretty cheap. He was sort of hyped up out of college and hasn't really lived up to hype. But the Bears could use another young body at the receiver position here. So they get a second round pick and Isabella there. Could it be a third-round pick? Is this a little rich for an inconsistent player? Possibly. Is it worth it for the Bears, though? Because the Bears' defense actually could be solid. I don't think people are hyped about their offense, but their defense, even though they don't have Khalil Mack, Keem Hicks, they got some pieces in there. And if you take away Robert Quinn, you don't have much sack production or pressure, getting after the quarterback here. So is it worth it? I know they're in that rebuild mode. They would take picks, but you can't just get lowballed, So would a third round pick work for the Bears? We'll see. We'll see what goes out, Robert Quinn. Next up, Daron Payne's been linked to, been part of trade rumors. Recently came out that Washington's, rejected some trades. Are they changing, and will they be willing to accept this and that? It's tough to figure out the value for Daron Payne because he's a very good and young nose tackle. He does have a salary of over $8 million this year, and he does need a new contract, which would definitely be north of that $8 million, even though $8's pretty pricey. And he's worth that because he's a very good young nose tackle. But how much do you pay nose tackles? And it's an expiring deal. Can the team work out a deal to extend him long term? So that's a tough part here. I think teams been lowballing the Commanders, and that's why they've been rejecting deals. They may have to take something less. Not too many teams badly need nose tackles. Take a look at the Browns. That defense could be one of the better defenses in football this year. I think the only thing they're missing is that stud on the interior that can just stop the run, that run stuffer there and get some interior pressure. So I like Daron Payne. The Browns have a lot of cap space. This offseason, they can trade Baker. We'll talk about Baker. It can clear some more even if they pay a part of that. So they can definitely pay Payne for this year. The problem is with the downside of the Browns is they are tied up for future cap. So can they extend Payne? Is this a rental? Do they try to work something out with him, extend him, and maybe bring some of that, borrow some money from this year, use some money from this year, perhaps. But yeah, I would like him with the Browns. That would upgrade their defense even more than it's already very solid. So the Commanders get a 4th-round pick and Greedy Williams. The Browns have added another. They have a very good duo in Ward and Newsome. They add Martin Emerson in the draft, who I like from Mississippi State. So they could afford to move on from Greedy Williams. Commanders don't really have any depth at all at the cornerback position, so they could use Greedy Williams there and get a 4th-round pick for Payne. I think talent-wise, Payne has more value. Definitely has more value than that 4th-round pick. Would a team be willing to trade that? He's got an expiring deal. Might be a rental. Needs that extension. How much is the nose tackle going to cost? So the team want to dish out. So for those reasons, and they haven't been able to trade him yet. It felt like they wanted to, perhaps. So that would be why the value seems a little less at the 4th-round pick. But they also get that corner as well. So 4th and Greedy Williams. And we're kind of staying on the Daron Payne train a little bit because I involved him in this trade, which I thought Deion Jones has popped up a little bit. I've heard his name pop up here and there, nothing serious. And in my head, I'm thinking, which team? I think the Commanders still want to get better at the linebacker position. Of course, they want Jamin Davis to work. Didn't play that great last year. They want to be a better defense this year, and they're looking to compete. They're looking to contend. They're looking to compete on both sides of the ball. So why not get better? Deion Jones played a little bit better, in that 4-3 role rather than the 3-4. Was looking like a star linebacker, really. So fits with Washington. They can definitely use a linebacker here. And I'm like, Daron Payne could actually be involved in a trade like this as well because Commanders get their linebacker, their upgraded linebacker they're looking for, and the Falcons could use a solid nose tackle, and they clear space moving on from Deion Jones, and they add a better pick as well. And they can use that solid nose tackle to plug in right inside of Grady Jarrett, Marlon Davis on the other side, because they want to do a better job stopping the run. They have not really been it. It's kind of been Grady Jarrett, who's a stud, but you really don't notice it a whole lot recently because, I think he can be an elite player. I think he's shown the eliteness at times, but haven't really noticed it lately because he doesn't have any help on the inside of him, and that's really shown. So you get a guy like Daron Payne, that'd be big time. You get more out of stopping the run. You get more out of Grady Jarrett, some other guys as well. And why would they trade Deion Jones? Because he could be part of that rebuild, but yeah, they could look to add a better pick. And there could be a different trade where they add a 2nd-round pick or wherever it may be. Would somebody trade that? Because he is pretty pricey on the cap hits. That's a tough part with Deion Jones. He's pretty pricey. Not a lot of teams looking to dish out huge linebacker money right now, most teams. So that's a tricky part. Yeah, so the Falcons, maybe they don't value the linebackers much anymore, and maybe don't view Deion Jones a fit. They move on from him. And then so I came up with Daron Payne in a fourth, which it was a tough one too, because it felt a little rich, I guess, Daron Payne and a fourth for Deion Jones. A fifth didn't feel like enough. It felt like a swap of picks here. I was thinking a six. I was thinking Daron Payne a fourth for Deion Jones a six. The Falcons don't have a six. They have multiple sevens, so I threw 2 7th-round picks in there, and that's kind of how, in my head, I came up with equal value. Because, again, Daron Payne expiring contract needs an extension there. Not a ton of money dished out the nose tackle position, but so not a lot of people are valuing it a whole lot, but probably should start, got to stop the run. So other than that, this is probably my favorite one of the video here, because I got 2 big-time players. I think really good fits. I think these teams could be interested in something like that. Not that I'm saying it's going to happen. Next up, Devin Bush hasn't really been working out right away. The first year he looked very solid, but recently, last year he struggled a little bit. Hasn't been really, kind of similar to Deion Jones. I think kind of want him to switch schemes a little bit. I think maybe Bush could thrive a little bit more in a 4-3. I think look at the Jets. They got a couple linebackers in there. They could look to get better. Salah's, he does a really good job developing these types of players, these linebackers. So I would like to see I would like to see it because of the fit and what Devin Bush can still become. Still has some upside, even though he's been a little disappointing. So tough to figure out value here as well. Third, I kind of thought of, which felt a little rich because he has been struggling, but he still has an upside. So I sent the pick back to the Jets as well. 3rd and 6th swap. Would it be worth the Steelers? Will they insist on him because what they traded away to go up and get Bush? That's why this was maybe not as realistic, because the Steelers might insist on him. But they got a couple other linebackers that could step up. They also added Miles Jack as well. So maybe they're just that wasn't the same Mike Tomlin defense last year. They're used to being an elite top tier. Maybe they just want to get back to that, just play the right guys. So we'll see. But I like the fit for I think Bush would kind of revive his career back on track in that Jets defense, which is, and I know Mike Tomlin's very good at developing guys. It's a very good defense. It's just about kind of scheme fit more, where I think it can help him revive his career there. So interesting one. Alexander Mattison. I haven't heard Alexander Mattison be talked about in trade at all, but I take a look at the Vikings, and they got a load of running backs, and they just drafted another one in Ty Chandler, who I actually really, really like, and Wagner they have from Iowa State, drafted from Iowa State last year, the speedy running back, and they have Dalvin Cook, of course. They may want to keep Mattison because Cook's missed some games here and there, and Madison's done a phenomenal job stepping in. It's almost like they didn't really, Dalvin Cook's definitely better, but it's almost like they don't even miss Cook a whole lot because Madison's playing so well. And I think Madison's starting running back. I think I've said that in the past too. I think he would start on several NFL teams. He's a very talented back. We see him when he comes in and starts. He's like a must start in fantasy, one of the best fantasy running backs of the week because of how productive he is, how talented he is. So, but the Vikings are loaded at running back. They don't have a 4th or a 7th next year, so it ended up being tough to figure out value for this one as well, but they end up working out there because Madison, would it be worth it to the Vikings if they're not getting a 3rd? Do you trade a 3rd for a guy that's actually been a backup running back but does have that starter feel? The Saints, it sounds like Kamara could be, he says he's expecting at least a 6-game suspension. I'd kind of be surprised if it was more. I guess the problem with that whole situation, maybe getting a little off topic, but is because it was during the Pro Bowl week. These guys are invited down for the Pro Bowl, this big event. It's not the best look for the league if it was just, there was no Pro Bowl and he got arrested. I think it would actually be less punishment. That's kind of my thinking. I could see people saying that doesn't make sense, but to me, if you think about it, it's like part of this NFL event. And it's not like the best look. But if it was more than 6 games, I wouldn't really agree with it. Really. So I always want to see great players out there, so I don't want Kamara suspended. I don't even want to suspend in 6 games, but what's right's right there. But the Saints are a team that they're not. The Saints are one of those teams where they're like, all right, we're not going to wait around for Kamara. We'll risk the 6 games and wait for that. No, every game's very important. We're not afraid to get better. We're not afraid to make that move. So the Saints are a team I can see making a move for a running back, and Madison would be very good on the Saints, and Kamara comes back. They really, really value having a kind of a 2-headed monster in there because they use Kamara at receiver, so it'd still work out. He is on an expiring deal, but it is cheap at the same time, so that kind of evens that out. It's very tough to figure out value. Would it be worth it for Vikings if it's on third? I don't know if a team would give up a third though for a running back that isn't, a little more proven at least. So I thought about fourth and a seventh. I think the third holds more value than a fourth and a seventh. The seventh holds very little. And the Vikings are actually missing picks from both those rounds. So I thought that kind of made sense. But is it worth it for the Vikings? Because if Cook goes down, they have Mattison. It's Mattison, or the other two options are solid. They're not Mattison, though. So that's kind of the problem. But they are looking to pass the ball a little bit more. So, I think that's why they get a guy like Ty Chandler, because he's a very good pass catcher as well. So I think this was an interesting one because they have so many running backs. Could they look to deal one in the Saints? Could they be looking to get one so they're not missing a beat there in the first 6 or 4, 6, 8, whatever games it is there? And now to the quarterbacks. We had to throw the quarterbacks in here. Jimmy Garoppolo, I sent to the Panthers because there's nowhere else to send him. We can send Baker Mayfield to the Panthers as well. I'd like that as well. But there's nowhere else to send Jimmy because they're not going to trade him to Seattle. Nowhere else to send them. I mean, could we talk about the Browns? Could the Browns want to still compete this year? They still have money, so you might as well spend it, and because it's a very good, talented roster, much like the 49ers, so they might be able to compete. So maybe the Browns. I'm not counting on it. But send Jimmy to the Panthers. They have talent. They just have very bad quarterback play. And the 49ers get a 2023 fourth-round pick. And honestly, I think the Panthers, or whoever the team is, could and should, or maybe should not give up even that much. They can give up less because we're at the point where the 49ers want to go Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo's taking up a lot of cap space. He's injured currently. Did I say there's nowhere else to send him, really? It's pretty much lost leverage. It's either keep him or deal him for anything here. So I don't think it'll be richer than a fourth-round pick there. So Panthers get Jimmy, and they cleared, again, I keep talking about, they restructured deals to clear money this year, and they basically, while doing that, they spent money in the future. You don't do that unless you spend the money, right, this year. And they haven't really done it, besides the draft class, and a couple signings, but they haven't really done it. So they're looking to spend it. That's what it looks like. They're looking to do something, whether it's Jimmy or Baker Mayfield. I'd be surprised if they don't trade for either one or make something happen, make some more signings or something. Be very surprised. So the 49ers get something here. Could end up being less than that because they could lose leverage unless they just want to keep him. But I feel like it's Trey Lance time, and they want it to be Trey Lance time. And then Baker, I sent to the Seahawks very well. Could send him to the Panthers. I would like that. It's like same thing. I would like that as well, that both teams have some weapons. But, I think the Seahawks want to run the ball first. They got some really good running backs. They got some really good receivers as well, better than what the Browns had with Baker. Baker, you'd like to think he gets healthy as well. They got a good coaching staff. I think with Baker, the Seahawks could be better than expected, and it's worth that risk. You've already added draft picks. You're kind of looking out for the quarterback of the future, so you give this a shot. You see, you give it a trial run, and you see if it's the guy of the future. You want to extend him, and I don't think it's got to be you don't have to do like a risky extension. I think you just maybe a 1 year or 2 year extra. And I think the team that trades for Baker, I think he'll respect that team, and I think you might be able to keep him unless he's terrible for a decent price. And I keep saying it, something about Baker, angry Baker, just I don't know, something that is dangerous, like in a good way. Something about him, and having DK and Lockett. And I think he kind of fits what the Seahawks are trying to do offensively. So Baker, the Seahawks, they also have the Browns paying $8 million of the salary. They're going to have to pay some of that salary. And they can get a pretty decent pick. I think Baker, young, had a very good season 2 seasons ago, still has upside. So I think a third-round pick, while the Browns pay $8 million, I came up with, pretty specific, but $8 million of the $18.858 million of the salary, that can get the Browns a third-round pick. Could it get them a second? I don't think so at this point, but you never know. But I think a third or a fourth. If they don't pay any of the salary, I don't think he gets traded. But if they don't pay any or very, very little, probably looking at like a fifth round pick, perhaps. Maybe even more of a future 2024 possibly. But yeah, so some of the Seahawks there, and I would think Panthers or Seahawks. I think if they got Baker, those are the ultimate sneaky teams. I think they can do some damage. I think they can be dangerous. They have weapons. And something about that angry Baker Mayfield, pissed off Mayfield. Dangerous in a good way for him, in a bad way for the rest of the league. Maybe not the entire league, because there's still teams that are much much better. But yeah. Well, I want to see somebody trade for Baker here. I want to see it happen. Mainly because I want to see him get a shot, and I like to see trades go down. And I'm sick of hearing it, because that's really all we got to talk about. Baker, is he going to get traded today, or what's happening? Jimmy Garoppolo, when is he going to get traded? That's all we've been talking about. So we'll see what goes down. Those are 10 trades I would love to see. Let me know your thoughts. If you would like to change the scenario, the compensation, any other teams that would be involved, any other players that would be involved, we can make another one of these. If we get a lot of those comments on Twitter, maybe it gives me ideas or whatever it may be. But loads of these types of videos on the channel and more to come, so join us. Can't wait for the season to start. We're not that close still, though. But it's all right. We got you covered with the content here, and we got maybe some NBA madness around the corner that we're excited to see as fans. But, join us, like, subscribe, turn notifications on, follow us on Twitter. A lot going on there. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.